In the vast ocean, where the white-capped waves never sleep, there are creatures hiding deep under the reefs, where light cannot reach. That is where one of the most mysterious sea monsters resides, giant eels. Long, smooth bodies, with sharp eyes and enough strength to make any fisherman wary. Unlike fish that are easily encountered when pulling nets or fishing, eels are reclusive predators, specializing in digging deep into rock holes. Coral cracks or hiding under the mud of the seabed. Therefore, the journey to catch eels is a game between patience, bravery and recklessness of humans before nature. When the sun just appeared on the horizon, it was also the time when the fishing boat began to leave the port. The Japanese fishermen with determined eyes, hands tightly holding the ropes, the pulleys ready, preparing for a long trip of many days, without sophisticated machinery like tuna or swordfish fishing. Eel hunting requires traditional techniques passed down through generations, from observing the currents underwater, smelling the wind to predict the direction of the eel's movement, to the skill of dropping the trap in the right position. Everything must be absolutely precise. One wrong step can mean losing a whole day's work. To catch a giant eel, fishermen often use long, cylindrical wooden traps, filled with fragrant bait, usually herring, squid or fresh meat, to attract eels from a distance. These traps are dropped along the reef areas near the island. Where the currents are not too strong and there are many natural caves. Fishermen have to time it well, waiting from 5 to 7 hours before pulling the trap up. Some days, when they pull it up, the trap is empty. Other days, an eel over 2 meters long, weighing over 20 kilograms, wriggles violently in the seawater, making everyone cheer loudly on the deck. Immediately after being caught, the eels are put into a cold water tank to keep them alive, to avoid thermal shock, and to make the meat firmer before being processed. And that is when a performance begins that everyone has to hold their breath to watch: the cutting and processing of sea eels right on the boat. On a carefully cleaned flat surface, the kitchen workers step in, holding sharp knives carefully sharpened with traditional whetstones. Not a word. Not a superfluous expression, only absolute concentration. The eel is placed straight. The head is fixed with a specialized hook to avoid slipping. In just a split second, the knife glides through the eel's body, a decisive cut from the neck to the belly. The intestines are pulled out in a surprisingly neat movement. The intestine cleaning step is a big challenge. Sea eels have thick sebum glands. If not cleaned properly, the meat will be fishy and lose its characteristic flavor. The chef must use diluted salt water to rub each layer of skin. Use a terry cloth towel to wipe off the mucus. Then wash with white wine to remove the smell. Each piece of pinkish white meat appears. The meat fibers are thick, even and smooth, the ingredient that high-class restaurants are always hunting for. After cleaning, the eel meat is cut into long pieces, flattened and neatly arranged on a stainless steel tray. A part of the meat is marinated with a special sauce made from eel bones. soy sauce, malt sugar and mirin, the mixture that creates the legendary kabayaki flavor. The rest is left intact, prepared for sashimi or salt-grilled dishes with a strong Japanese flavor. The chef uses a bamboo stick to skewer the eel along the body, ensuring that it does not warp when grilled. The charcoal fire is lit with binchotan charcoal. The most expensive charcoal in Japan. Smokeless, high heat and retains the original aroma of the meat. While the eel is being grilled, another group of fishermen continue their journey to set traps in deeper areas. At this time, big waves began to rise. The wind blew strongly, the ship tilted but no one faltered. They clearly understood that eels are often active in the evening, and if they missed this moment, the opportunity would slip away. The young pulled the rope. The old watched the direction of the waves. Every action was coordinated like a perfect machine. And when the last trap was pulled up, inside was a shiny black eel, its body as big as an adult's arm, its eyes shining like a knife blade. The whole ship resounded with joy like a child had found a treasure. While the fire was burning brightly in the space of the strong sea wind, the eel skewers continued to be turned evenly. Each time they were turned, the chef skillfully brushed on another layer of the thick sauce that was simmering beside them. The aroma rose up, penetrating every corner of the ship. The whole atmosphere was filled with the salty taste of the ocean mixed with the sweet scent of traditional kabayaki sauce. Under the gradually falling sunset, white smoke billows up, like a soft dance, adding to the magical atmosphere. Inside the ship's hold, another group of fishermen are sorting the remaining parts of the eel head. Bones, skin and organs, no part is wasted. The eel head is used to make broth, the core ingredient for hot eel soup. The bones, after being cleaned of meat, are grilled until crispy, then crushed into fish powder, a very popular spice in Japanese cuisine. The organs are thoroughly washed, marinated with spices, and fermented to create a unique snack that can only be found in this sea area. The whole eel, from head to tail, becomes a delicacy, not only because of its culinary value but also because it is a symbol of respect for food, not leaving any part to waste. But the journey at sea is not always smooth like that. There are days when storms come unexpectedly. The waves were as high as the deck. Water flooded into the hold. Everyone had to take turns bailing out water, keeping the ship from capsizing. The traps on the seabed were swept away. The tow ropes broke. And the whole day's work was lost in the waves. In that situation, no one complained, no one gave up, everyone just held each other's hands tighter, held the steering wheel firmly, waiting for the sea to calm down to continue the journey. It was challenges like these that forged the steel spirit and undying solidarity of the fishermen at sea. After each day of fishing, when it was dark, the entire fleet would anchor in a more peaceful area. On the deck, the grilled eels were carefully packed into traditional wooden boxes. lined with green bamboo leaves to retain moisture and aroma. Each box was recorded with the date of fishing, location, and name of the ship, as an affirmation of the transparent origin and pride of the craftsman. The unprocessed fresh eels will be kept in a cold storage with a stable temperature, ensuring the highest quality when the ship arrives at port. From afar, the lights of other ships also begin to appear sparkling like stars on the sea surface. Each small boat forms a solid formation in the middle of the ocean, like a floating village on the waves. The ships communicate with each other by radio waves, sharing information about the currents, where there are signs of eels appearing, supporting each other when needing to pull heavy traps or having an accident. The love of the fishing village at sea, through many generations, remains as strong as the rope anchoring a ship in a storm. Not everyone knows that eel fishing is one of the most dangerous and arduous jobs. Each giant eel is not only a trophy but also a testament to courage, skill and luck. There are days when the ship returns with only a few small eels in the hold, enough for a meal, but not enough to sell. However, no one is discouraged. For them, the sea is always fair. Some days give a lot, some days challenge. The important thing is to never lose faith and perseverance. In areas like Izu, Aomori or Okinawa, eel is not only food but also closely associated with local culture. Traditional festivals often have an eel processing competition right on the harbor. The artisans stand in front of the crowd, with only a knife and a wooden board, and can process the eel in a few dozen seconds. Cheers resound every time the eel is cut beautifully, evenly, just thick enough and smooth. It is not just skill, it is art. And for those who are lucky enough to enjoy eel right on the boat, when it is just grilled, that feeling is unforgettable. The hot, soft eel meat, the fatty taste blends with the salty and sweet sauce, eaten with white rice or wrapped in dried seaweed, creating a simple meal but rich to every taste cell. Perhaps that is why those who have followed fishermen to catch eels will never forget it, not only because of the taste, but also because of the story behind each meal. When the morning light begins to appear, each ray of sunlight penetrates the thin mist on the sea surface, reflecting shimmeringly on the smooth skin of the eels still alive in the cold water tank. A new day begins, and the fishermen also begin a new cycle of labor, of exchange and hope. No one complains about fatigue, because each day at sea is a day they get closer to the moment of finding precious prey. Eels that can be exchanged for income, sustaining the life of the whole family back home. In another corner of the deck, a group of people are preparing for a more special fishing method, the method of draining the rock cavity. This is a traditional technique, often applied in areas with reefs that are subject to low tides. Down at certain times of the month, when the tide is low, exposing the large rock holes where the eels often hide, the fishermen will bring their small boats close to shore. set up a system of high-pressure suction pipes to pump water out of these holes. They believe that when the water is drained, the eels will be exposed and have nowhere to hide. The sound of the pump roars. Water sprays out. Each giant rock hole is clearly visible under the sunlight. And then, from the deepest crevice, a slow movement begins to appear, the head of a jet-black eel, as big as an adult's calf, is rising to find a way to escape. The whole area is filled with shouts as two young fishermen jump in. Using specialized tools to clamp down on the eel's body, the struggle between man and giant sea creature begins. Water splashes, mud splashes on faces. After a few tense minutes, the eel is finally subdued, brought onto the boat amid cheers, applause and many drops of sweat rolling down the cheeks. That scene is likened to a miniature survival battle between humans and nature. Where the strong one is not the one who uses the most strength, but the one who is persistent, has tactics and dares to confront. For experienced fishermen, just by looking at the traces of flowing water, the fishy smell in the air or the direction of the foam floating on the water surface, they can guess where the eels live. They do not need maps, do not need modern technology, only their eyes and the feeling from their hands, which have been honed over decades of living with the sea. Back on the main ship, the eels that have just been brought up are immediately transferred to the processing area. No one is allowed to let the eels wait too long, because if they die too long before being cleaned, the meat will become soft, no longer retaining its natural elasticity and characteristic flavor. The main chef on this trip is a man over 60 years old, with gray hair, but his hands are still as quick as lightning. He followed his father to sea at the age of 12. And more than 50 years of experience have made him a legendary eel knife in the area. Just watching him handle an eel, from fixing the head, cutting open the belly, separating the bones to removing the skin, one will understand that this is no longer a job, but a kind of performing art. In addition to the meat used for grilling, people also process live eels into sashimi, a popular dish in high-class restaurants, to make sashimi from sea eel. The first requirement is that the meat must still be twitching, proving absolute freshness. After being sliced extremely thinly, the sashimi pieces will be placed on a porcelain plate with ice, accompanied by a bowl of wasabi soy sauce and some grated radish. When put into the mouth, the cool, soft, naturally sweet and fatty feeling of the eel meat will make any diner exclaim. Another part of the eel is dried, an old but still very popular method of preservation. After being deboned, the eel is hung upside down in the ship's airlock, where the temperature and humidity are controlled by the natural sea breeze system. After 24 to 36 hours, the dried eel is vacuum sealed, packaged, and ready to be brought back to the mainland for sale to domestic and international distributors. The giant eels, once deep in the cold seabed, are now a delicacy, solemnly displayed in luxury restaurants in Tokyo, Seoul, and even Paris.